Good evening, and thank you for the kind invitation to have the American Red Cross represented. Um, I always start by telling people a little bit about our Red Cross story as it relates to social media, and really how we use social media during emergencies and disasters. And that's one of the key ways that we use it. And I tell the story of walking out of my office about a day or so after the Haiti earthquake happened, and I had a number of staff members who were quite upset, and they had tears in their eyes, and I walked out and thought, what in the world is going on? And as it turns out, we had members of the Haitian diaspora community who were contacting us via Twitter, who were contacting us via Facebook, and they were letting us know very specific information about where they had relatives located in Haiti, sometimes street addresses, exact locations of where people were trapped in rubble, neighborhoods that needed food and water. And what occurred to us is that we had a very powerful tool with which to help people. But we also didn't have a very coordinated way to take in that information or move it through any sort of structure to be able to get the information to folks who could give help on the ground. And so that's when we really embarked on our journey to figure out how we can use social media to assist and help people during emergencies. And we were able to partner with our friends at the State Department and with the federal government and with the U.S. Department of Defense to eventually get some of this information to people on the ground that can help. But what that spawned for us is really the social engagement program that we've built over the last couple of years at the American Red Cross. And the center of that social engagement program for us has been our Digital Operations Center, which is a command center that's located right inside of our operations center here in Washington, D.C. And in that center, we listen and we engage with the public. And we talk to members of the public during a disaster. Not only are we giving out actionable information, but we're also giving them emotional support. We're tracking situational awareness, so we have a better idea of what's happening on the ground during an emergency. And that informs our decision making. It helps us make better decisions about where we provide help and how we get help to the people who need it. So you can see a photo here of our command center. It's proudly funded by the folks at Dell Computers. We also have the Engagement Console, which is a software that is operated by Radian 6, and that allows us to interact with the public during an emergency. And then we're able to pull all sorts of metrics and pieces of information, and I'll show you some of those in just a minute, that help really inform our decision making and help us better get help to people on the ground during an emergency. So we heard a little bit about Hurricane Sandy already today, and that was sort of the first big test of our Digital Operations Center and our newly formed social media program. And one of the things that we do is we pull in pieces of information that we review during an emergency. And during Sandy, we pulled in 2.5 million pieces of social data, Twitter posts, Facebook posts, Instagram photos that helped give us better information and data about what was happening on the ground and what people needed from the Red Cross. Many of those posts had mentions of the Red Cross in them. Many of them didn't. We were just looking for information about how the disaster was unfolding. So we actually build out keyword groups, and we monitor these keyword groupings of terms that you frequently see during disasters. And we farm that information for better situational awareness on the ground. We actually, as I said, engage with the public, and we did that more than 2,300 times during about a 2-month period surrounding Hurricane Sandy. We were talking to the public, and you'll see that in just a moment, about where they can find our services, giving them bits of actionable information that they can use to keep themselves and their loved ones safe. And we did this with 31 digital volunteers, along with my staff of 3 here in Washington. And we've actually, in the past couple of years, instituted a digital volunteer program where we train Red Cross volunteers and we train members of the public to engage with people on social media during an emergency to give out that actionable, good information that happens during an emergency. But as I said, we're also listening to what's happening on the ground. And we're using that to make decisions about how we offer our services during an emergency. So there were 229 pieces of data that we took out of the 2.5 million, and we gave that to our operational teams. And we were able to actually turn that into good information about where we provide our services. So we turned around trucks and moved them from one area to another. We were able to offer different services, better services, based upon the feedback we were getting from the social community and people who were on the ground. So we used this information, and 88 times we actually shifted or changed what we were doing on the ground during Hurricane Sandy based upon the information we were seeing in the social space. We also generate social content. So we had spokespeople, we had volunteers on the ground who were generating images and videos and tweets about the Red Cross services that were happening to help people know where to get help and also how to give help as well. And so that was a very popular thing that we were doing. We had a number of things that we found very early were trending. And so first of all, we found that in the affected areas, people had a real need for information about how to get help and where there was damage. And so we were farming that information, and in return, as you'll see in just a moment, giving them very good information about where, in fact, to get help. There was also a subset of the general public who was just interested in the disaster. Maybe they had relatives in the affected area. Maybe they just were interested in what was happening. And what we found is that these were people who wanted to know how they could help, and that was the kind of information we were giving. These were also people sometimes who just needed emotional support. And at the Red Cross, we like to give out what we call digital hugs via social media. So we give, you'll see in just a moment, where we just tell people, hang in there, we're thinking about you, here's some information you can use. And we give them what we like to call the digital hug. So you'll see this is an example of one of the things that, one of the ways that we interact with people. We have someone who's asking one of our staff members, I have a van full of items that I'd like to donate. Where can we bring them? And so she explains what the proper way to donate items and how we want people to help during a disaster. That was a piece of information that was very valuable to a lot of people. They wanted to know how they could help. And so we interact with them one-on-one, and we explain this information to them. Again, another example of how we provide actionable information. This young lady, Christiana, was on the ground. She was in New Jersey, and she would take photos of where we were providing services, where people could get a meal. Where people could get shelter from the Red Cross. And she'd put that out, and then she would interact with the people who were out there who wanted more information. And so these very specific, very granular pieces of information became extraordinarily important to people on the ground. Then we also have more than 500 Red Cross chapters around the country, and they all have their own social accounts. And we work with them as well to provide information. So you can see where our chapter in New York was putting out information about where to get water, where to get hot meals. And then in turn, they would interact with the public. We had people thanking them. We asked the public to pass this information along and amplify the information. So all ways that we're reaching out and we're engaging directly with people. And not only are we giving out the information, but we're talking to them. We're giving them a little bit of emotional support. And we're also learning from them about where things are happening on the ground and how we can adjust our services. So as we move forward, we'll be expanding our program at the Red Cross. Every day we're training more digital volunteers. We have more than 100 trained right now. And so as we move forward, our goal is to make sure that we provide people with the information they need during disasters, that we get feedback from them and we're listening to people, and that we use that to inform how we make decisions about where to provide our services and our help. So thank you, and I'll be happy to take your questions in a few moments.